Well, good morning, everybody. We're just about ready to start. If you are standing, would you please take a seat and we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Well, who needs to wait a couple of minutes when everybody's ready to go? Listen, as we start this morning, I would like to introduce and recognize the elected officials in the room this morning. We have Council Member Chris Eck here, Vivian Olson, Will Chen, and I saw Susan Payne. There she is over there. Great. So your council is well represented in the room this morning. We also have our police chief in the back of the room, keeping an eye on everything, Acting Chief Rod Sniffen. Edmonds Port Commissioner David Preston is here. County Fire is represented with Chief Bob Eastman and Assistant Chief Todd Anderson here in the room. And then elected official David Chan is with us this morning. So with that, if you happen to have a phone and you haven't turned off the ringer yet, this would be a time to do that. So this morning, we have just a great agenda planned for you. Thank you so much for coming. Look forward to sharing some exciting details of what's happening in the city this morning. But we are going to start off with a video. Wow, did you see all those smiles in the picture? It's a great day to be in Edmonds. So this morning it's my privilege to introduce our mayor, Mike Rosen. And this year I serve as the council president for your representatives, the city council here in Edmonds. And as I was preparing this introduction, I realized that our mayor has been in office for less than a year and a half, and he has done so much in that time. And one of the things that I began to realize is he has done so much in such a short period of time. And as I've gotten to know him, there are three things that I want to say about him. He cares about the city of Edmonds. He cares about you in this room. He cares about the future of the city of Edmonds. One of the things that he did when he first came into office was he established the Blue Ribbon Panel. I think most of you have heard about that. He pulled together a panel of experts, people who knew about financial management. They worked through the issues that we face as a city and the budgets, and they not only worked through and identified the issues that brought us to the place that we're at, but they also developed a plan. And our mayor, he cares about our city. He took that plan and he began implementing it, and he's still working on that today. That's how much he cares about our city. The second thing that I've learned about him is he is absolutely committed to the city of Edmonds. He gets up daily, and I'm telling you, he starts early. He starts early. I've been down here downtown at like 8:30 in the morning. I'm thinking, you know, where the birds are out, the sun is shining, and the mayor's car's been here for a long time, first thing in the morning. He cares about our city and he's committed to it. This year, the city council asked him to cut $1.5 million out of our budget. And he came back with $1.8 million in cuts, and he did it on time. And he's bringing a plan forward that will help us to stabilize our budget as a city. He's also absolutely committed to the men and women in blue of our city. He told me about a call that he went on with our police department. He looked out over um, the opportunities for our city to deal with a drug problem in our city, and he went with our police department on a raid early in the morning, and he came back from that and he said, "Those people know what they're doing. They communicate, they're trained, they know what they're doing, and they were able to apprehend the suspect." He's absolutely committed to our city. He's committed to our public safety. He's committed to us as individuals. Finally, I just want to say that I've noticed that he communicates, and I'm sure that's nothing new for many of you in the room. There's such a difference in the way our city administration is being handled this year. He returns emails, he returns phone calls, and that's really important for the city council. One of the things that we're able to do is we're able to work together cooperatively to get things done in our city that we have not been able to do for a while. And I really appreciate the fact that he's absolutely committed to communicating with our city. And I'll tell you something else: if he doesn't get it right, he changes course and he works to fix the problem. So we're fortunate to have Mayor Rosen occupying the corner office here, and I realize that not everyone is happy. I suppose doing the job as a leader of a city of nearly 43,000 people and over 200 staff and exactly 7 council members, he is bound to ruffle some feathers. So with that, please welcome to to the stage Chief Feather Ruffler and our Mayor Rosen.
Way to lower the bar for me. Manage expectations. Thanks. Thanks for that introduction. And thank you all for being here in this theater. This is a part of one of the many things that makes Edmonds special and one of the many reasons we love this place. There are fewer than 54 theaters that are over 100 years old. This is one of them in the country. And fewer than around a little over 20% of them only have one screen. That's what happens. And here in Edmonds, we have this gift. So today we're going to talk about the state of the city. I think it's always important to remember that we weren't here first. This guy was, and many people before him. And they fished and gathered and took care of this place well before we got here. But in 1868, a guy named Pleasant showed up and he built a cabin. So it wasn't Brackett that was first, it was Pleasant. And he had this cabin in 1868. And then this is an actual picture from when Brackett showed up. This is the day in 1870, and it's in color, right? But this is the reality of how we got found. Brackett was out there in the Sound. It was a storm. He didn't like to be in a canoe in the storm, and he came to shore. And that's what started it all, because it rains here, and that's how Brackett found us. So he bought some land. He bought 147 acres from Mr. Pleasant for $650. And this is Mr. Brackett doing what he came. He saw those trees, he saw opportunity, and he started cutting them down. This, you know, I wanted to introduce you to Bill and Bolivar. They are a big part of our history, believe it or not. We did not, when we tried to incorporate, we did not have enough humans to sign the petition. So we are the only city in the country that has 2 animals on our petition to become a city. And because of that, we've always done things a little differently here in Edmonds. And because of that, we are now the oldest city, incorporated city in Snohomish County, thanks to the 2 of them. This is George and his bride, Etta. They, in 1890, decided to leave Edmonds, and they sold what they had accumulated at that point, 455 acres for $36,000. This is what the place looked like then. And Mr. Brackett, as you saw, was bringing down trees and decided shingles were the future. And this is what the waterfront looked like that very same year. So that was sort of our birth. So let's sort of move ahead to today. As Council President Tibbet mentioned, this is my 445th day. For those of you who count with me, I do count. And you hired me for 1,461 days, so I'm about 30% through. I am not the first. We are all very temporary stewards of this place. All the people you saw before, we are here for a short time. We are very temporary stewards, and it is our job to take care of the place. These were the mayors who came before me, and there will be mayors after me. And, you know, there are many reasons we are all here. But I think if we were to make a list, you know, I think everybody in the room chooses this place, and I think we choose it for lots of the same reasons. There's lots to love. And we asked people in a recent survey about how would you rate the quality of life here? Overwhelmingly, it was good or excellent. And we did it both through a statistically valid survey and just open to the public. And you can see consensus. We love this place. We love the quality of life that this place provides. So the job of the city, what I'm going to talk about today, I put it into 4 categories. That what the city is here to do is to protect you, protect this place, protect your money, and improve government. And I'm going to talk about each of those. So let's start with protect you. And Neil mentioned before our police, in terms of, you know, if you're going to have Northern Lights, do a hero shot, right? So they have to go through an extensive accreditation process. This is every 4 years. There are over 200 criteria that they have to meet. We are in one of those 4th years. We are 98% through it. There's just one more step. We are so good in meeting these credentials and getting the accreditation that other police forces around the state reach out to us to ask about the standards and how to raise the standards and how to be able to meet these accreditation expectations. We are looked to for as the standard. Lots of tools that they use, as you can see here. Excuse me. Not only internally are these the kinds of tools, and they are out there obviously 24/7, 365, but we also participate. If you look in the lower left, there's more than a few opportunities where we participate regionally with other forces. And I think that is something that I have been trying to do more of, that I think we need to do more of in general. There are so many things that cross borders that we will never have the resources to do by ourselves. Crime doesn't start or stop at the border. You know, people who do it aren't paying attention to that. We need to work on these things regionally, pool our resources, and we do that, and we do that very well. As you can see, we have a drone, and frequently it is our drone that is used in the region. We have 2 canine units, and we frequently are helping others out, and that is, I think, a good practice for the future as well as the current. They like to stay good, and they go through a lot of training. And this is a list of much of the training that they do. Some of this is mandated. We are obvious. I will talk more about money later, but when it comes to budget cuts, one of the first things that you always look at is training, which is sadly one of the things that should be the last to cut. But there are things that are required, and we do want to make sure that our force is very, very well trained. Sadly, one of the types of crimes, Washington State is the 8th worst state in the country for domestic violence. These are some of the most violent of crimes that take place. You can see the trends in the numbers. Any number above 0 is too high. Here are some of the weapons of choice here for crimes in Edmonds. The picture behind the graph is from one of the busts that our police force did, and there were, I believe, 2 weapons retrieved in that particular story. Here are some of the drugs of choice. Snohomish County for a while had the fastest growing rate of death from fentanyl anywhere. Here's last year's count of crimes. We do solve crimes. This was a recent one, and this guy could not have been happier. his van was stolen with all of his equipment for his business, and they got it back. And he wrote several times. It's like, I got to have a picture with you guys with my stuff. He couldn't have been happier. But this is what it means. This is what all of this means, right? It's about our quality of life, our being safe, and protecting ourselves from not only crime, but in case of medical emergencies, personal theft, property theft. And I'd say they're darn nice people. Um, it's sort of annoying how often people come up to me and talk about how nice our police force are. When I did my standing on the street, ask the mayor, it happened a lot, and people do reach out to me frequently, just saying they had an interaction with the police and they're just so grateful for how they were treated. Another part of keeping us safe is fire. We did have our own fire department for a while. Back in 1925, for example, it was a volunteer fire department. So we recognized early on that things burn, and the city has burned a couple of times, pretty significantly. And so it's sort of an important thing. But since 2010, we have contracted. The city was in a similar financial situation a while ago and determined that the best relationship for the city was to get out of the business of having our own fire department and started the contract with South County Fire. And at the time, it also provided a financial savings. And we've been in that contract relationship ever since. And I know we talk about fire and EMS a lot. But I think it's important to know that the fire department also provides marine response, community paramedics, which I'll come back to in a second, technical rescue. People get stuck in places they shouldn't get stuck, hazardous materials, and obviously home safety visits and CPR, which is a really important element of time matters, and frequently the first responder is somebody else. So CPR training is critically important. The community paramedics, a while ago, it was determined, and found, there are people who have repeat visits for a number of reasons to emergency rooms and hospitals. And wow, if we can help those people not have to go to the emergency room and help get them the health care they need, or get them onto a more stable practice, that would work. And so this community paramedic program has helped reduce emergency visits significantly, and it's a really good model. And I think the more we can do those kinds of things and go upstream, the better it can be. In terms of response times, as we mentioned, I'm sorry, this is incident trends, so you can see how often the phone rings and the trends for that over time. I think most of us know that EMS, 84% of those calls, of those 6,300 calls, are medical, are EMS. It is a big part of what they do. And I think it is important to also note that their success rate is virtually twice that of the rest of the country. So, right, there's a few of us that are a little older here in Edmonds. This number is kind of important. And I know I have not heard them say this out loud, but there was an international conference in Seattle a couple weeks ago about just this, cardiac survival rates. And Edmonds, our South County Fire, was asked to come and talk about, how do you do that? How are you getting that kind of a survival rate? Again, in the same way we talk about our police force being the standard around the state, this was an international conference from people all over the world who came, and Edmonds was specifically, South County Fire was specifically asked, how are you doing that? And part of how that happens is, there has been questions about, why do so many people show up? And this is a part of why, because it works. Data driven. Response times. Again, this isn't the whole story. I think it's always good to ask questions about statistics. You can't, we don't know, it's not kept. How long does somebody wait before they dial the phone? How long are they on the phone before the phone rings or the call comes to South County Fire? But once it comes, once it's theirs to handle, they get, you can see the percentages to get within 8 minutes or less. And then if you want to look at 90% of their response times, it is this. One of the best ways to deal with things is to prevent them. So having our fire marshals out there checking things and making sure things are okay and doing these kinds of inspections and being available, like at not just when things are being built, but also at special events, making sure that it is going to be safe for the community. And I do applaud all of the promoters in the community who do these big special events that we all love. This is extremely high on their priority list as well, making sure that if something happens, there is access to vehicles and responders. You all know that at the end of this year, our contract ends, or you might have heard something about it. In looking at it before it was determined that we would go to the ballot, the city council, before I was mayor, even started studying this to look at what our options were. And through that, through a Fitch study and also through individual explorations, there were four primary alternatives that were pursued. One is continuing a contract. So we know this one ends. What would it look like to continue it with a different contract? We own 3 fire stations, and there's in the contract, we can buy back the rolling stock, the trucks, which are now getting kind of old, but by contract, we can buy those back. So should we rebuild our own? Another alternative was, are there other people that we could contract with? What about Shoreline? What, you know, or could we partner with somebody like Muckleteel and maybe do something like that? And then the fourth option is the annexation. And it was determined that to have the same level and the same quality of EMS and fire service and the other things that were on that list, that the cheapest, less expensive, are you ever supposed to say cheap? The the most reasonable, the least expensive alternative is to annex. So that's why it is on your ballot. But I want to emphasize this is up to you. This is up to each of you. It is a it is a personal decision. You're hearing and reading lots of stuff. I encourage you to get the information that you need that answers questions for you. As you can see, there are lots of things to talk about in this issue. But for you personally, you have to decide which of these things is most important and decide for yourself. Am I a yes or am I a no? And the election is on April 22nd, and there is on our website, we have information, fact sheets, and then there's also a calculator. There's a lot of numbers. People talk about cost per thousand. People talk about what would $1 million house be? What is the average assessed value of a house? And what does that cost? And those are good reference points, but I would encourage you, if you can go in to use this calculator and it'll tell you for your house, this is the dollar impact for you. So I encourage you to do that. There are other things related to keeping you safe that continue to trouble me. These have troubled me since before I was considering. You know, we are we are in an earthquake zone. We are. You know, wasn't it the University of Washington scientists who are nationally looked at for this who said, yeah, pretty much everything west of I-5 will be toast? You never want to hear that from a researcher. So I am concerned about us being prepared for catastrophic events. You know, we're pretty good at the 3-day snowstorms, but there are other things that last longer, and I think we should be better prepared. In addition to that, you know, I don't know if you noticed the picture when I showed you of the waterfront, but there were 3 railroad tracks back then even. And so it's not just about a fire. There could be a fire there. There could be a medical emergency. Again, time matters. There could be an active shooter on the other side. A train could go over and there could be a hazardous material spilled. So I worry about, right, we need to be safe wherever we are, whatever time of day it is. And we, you know, a long time ago, the city took a run at it. Community decided that was not necessarily the best idea, but the problem didn't go away. Also, there are many other issues that aren't just that have to do with protecting us that are regional issues. There are a lot of social issues that we need to be addressing. There is food insecurity that's getting worse. There is housing insecurity. There is homelessness. I mentioned the domestic violence issue. These are the second leading cause of death for young people is suicide. There are many other things we need to be working on to protect our residents. And those are regional issues and national issues, and we need to partner. We can't carry that on our own, but we need to be working on it. And we have committed resources to do it. Public Works, big stuff. One of the things that Public Works does is make sure we get water, clean water that we can protect delivered to our home. How cool is that? And it takes an infrastructure to make that happen. And this is the infrastructure that they have to maintain to make sure that our water is delivered to us. And there is great in everything I am telling you. Our staff takes great pride in understanding how important these services are. In addition to that, we have other kinds of infrastructure. Look at that. Who knew? This is all 2024 work. One of the things that happens is, things get old. I'm gonna. There are many things that go into our pipes. This, the top picture is the acronym is FOG. Fats, oils, and grease. Other things, sadly, go into our pipes. But one of the options when it gets like this and the pipe gets deteriorated is, do you rip up the street, replace the whole pipes? Well, they are always looking for technology and opportunities to get a result that's going to work for the community for the most reasonable cost. And this is a cured in place technology where they go into the pipe and cure it in place, basically rehabbing that pipe for 50 years, no streets ripped up, no pipes having to be relayed into the ground. And it's pretty cool stuff. We also got 5.2 lane miles of roadway overlaid. We have a fleet. We own stuff with wheels. Big stuff and little stuff. Almost 900,000 miles last year. Safety's big here at the city, 40% reduction just last year in accidents, vehicle accidents. And I think it's the commitment to our environment and energy conservation. 40% of our over the road vehicles are either electric, hybrid, or use alternative fuels. And every time a vehicle comes up for its lifespan, we look for opportunities to make that number bigger. Wastewater treatment. When we're done with it, we'd like it to go somewhere but get cleaned up before it goes out. And I don't know how many of you know that we also partner with these other communities. So we serve them and they help pay for this process that we have. And they treat a lot of water. And this is just an average. Engineering development, right? Making sure that the stuff we build meets standards. So they look in detail. We got a proposal for a project the other day, and the plans were 600 pages. Takes a while to go through that and make sure that it's correct. So the engineering department team, you can see the numbers that they have looked at. ROW is right of way. A lot of inspections, 3,600 inspections, making sure it's right, not just that the plans were good. Let's talk about planning division. They live in the future and the present. So we've just, as you know, been working hard with the comprehensive plan. We were required to get that done by the end of the year. It was a bit of a heavy lift, as it has been. Not all cities actually made the deadline, and we did. This looks out 20 years, and those are the categories that have to be included in it. And as you know, as we were moving forward in that process, in a parallel process, the folks down in Olympia were sort of changing the rules. So we had to understand what did that mean and modify the comp plan to make sure that we were meeting the new laws that Olympia was creating. And to do that, we also are really trying to engage the community in decisions that impact their daily lives. This is some of the outreach and opportunities for people to participate last year, specifically for the comp plan. It started before that. These were the opportunities in 2023 for people to weigh in, and you can see it happened in a lot of places. Part of public engagement is trying to make it convenient. Where does it make sense and where is it convenient for you to participate? So it was at different places in town, out in the public, in parks, lots of just different opportunities to weigh in. They are also very engaged in the permitting process, two sides of the permitting, and you can see the numbers involved in doing this. It's a lot of work to make sure things are done correctly and to create a future that we all want. They also do code enforcements, just like the nuisance stuff. 191 cases were resolved out of the 226 that were opened. Housing, when we did the survey of what is important to the community, affordable housing. So for many people in Edmonds, it's can I get one? And for other people, it was can I keep one? Both ends are being stressed. How do I stay in my house? How can I get a house? And we are very built out. We have new requirements from the state, as well as the moral desire to try to help people get into homes and to be able to keep their homes. So this is the unit permits that were done last year. Come on, there we go. Let's talk about parks. So parks, the way we continue to invest in our parks is actually through sort of 5 different approaches, right? We get new parks, and frequently that's through donations. People will them to us or donate them to us. We can expand current parks, sometimes through that same approach. Renovate, let's make sure that they're still good. Can we improve them? As you can see, this is Matthew Ballinger, which is going through a really cool improvement program now, and then maintenance. We have 47 parks. We have 267 acres of parks and open space and nearly a mile of waterfront. We love our parks. This is a big part of our quality of life. People here like to be in nature, when even in the rain, but when the sun comes out, it is a celebration in Edmonds of people. We rely heavily on volunteers. And, I'm talking a lot about what the city did, but an awful lot of what I'm going to talk about is also what we do because we have so darn many volunteers in the community who are willing to, you can see just the through with the parks through this. And I also love, I, I like the playfulness of some of our volunteers. We have an Ivy League here, the Ivy Pullers, and we have the Martians here who are working to help us preserve the marsh. But they roll up their sleeves and get really dirty to work on this. We also have 110 memorial benches and picnic tables honoring community members. There is a waiting list, a very big waiting list for this program. It not only helps us enjoy our community, but it does help us remember those who came before us and our family members. The flower baskets are a big part. People love the flower baskets. This is another example of something that we do because somebody wanted it done, and in their will, they donated the money. This is 100% paid for by a contribution. And it involves not only the flower baskets, but some of those corner parks. And last year, we introduced 9 new ones up at 5 corners. We're also working with the Boys and Girls Club to build a new facility in Civic Park. It's very exciting. It's getting close to being ready to start, and that will be a nice amenity to a nice park. The Edmund Cemetery. We have a celebrity sitting down here who's in this picture. Larry is, if you don't know, yeah, and the Memorial Day service, which is very, very touching and powerful. We also do free concerts in the park and movies in the park, and again, done through the graciousness of our sponsors. Sort of continuing with the theme of parks as a commitment to the environment, our little corner of the planet is a very precious jewel, and we have a lot of biodiversity here. There's over 200 bird species here in Edmonds. How many of you seen it? You're all checking off. Yeah. Then we also have sea critters, water critters, mammals and reptiles. Lots of critters that we share this planet with, and every decision we make has an impact on them as well. Again, 267 acres of open space owned and managed by the city. These are some of the other things. This is just a partial list of some of the other things we have done to try to help maintain and improve our environmental impacts. And we can do more. The marsh, it's important. We all are hopeful. It is not ours to have yet. We hope to have it. We are first in line, but there is still the work being done between the state and the Unocal property. And wouldn't it be nice if it could be restored and turned into an estuary, and also an opportunity for us to enjoy, more critters to enjoy, and the ability for educational opportunities. So hopefully, but we are working towards that at every opportunity we get to engage. Arts and culture, 50 years. How cool is that? 50 years this year for the Arts Commission. Our arts commitment includes a rotating gallery that is in all city buildings. If you've been at the Francis Anderson Center or in our renovated library, you've seen these kinds of exhibits. 32 art installations out in public. Sketchers Fest. I don't know if you've ever run into these folks, but they come to town and they are all over, and they come from all over doing these sketches. Another celebration. If you're going to sketch, why not come to one of the coolest places on the planet to do it? 24 free concerts, again, thanks to our sponsors. Right on the Sound, 250 people, right? It's another form of art. Lots of different forms of art that we celebrate here. They come from not only our country, our neighboring country, but all over our state as well. And this is, we talk about a creative economy, that one of the things that makes Edmond special is our creative economy. And these are all organizations that either are exclusively committed to the arts or have something to do with the arts. And this is how we are advancing our creative economy. And it also, I think, is a reflection of who we are as a people and what attracts us. Let's talk about your money. So a little bit of some of this is a repeat of some of the things I've said in the past. I continue to hear periodically, it's like, why didn't I know about this? How big is the problem? What caused that problem? And as we're making decisions that are facing you that have an impact on your money, I thought it might be good to spend just a little bit of time on a little bit of the past, and then I'll catch up to the future. But I do want to reinforce that our current situation, that we seem to be in a place where we need a scapegoat, and this was not a person. We didn't get here because of a person. We didn't get here because of a group or a single decision that took place, or a specific action. It didn't happen because of any single one of those things, and we aren't going to get out with one single action either. So no scapegoating. We aren't alone. Financial problems are everywhere. You can see just even nationally in 2022, 70% of the largest cities in the country were facing problems. Here in our own state, you can see those numbers. This is a problem that we are all facing. We are facing ours for many of the same reasons, but we have some other situations that contributed to it. But as we talk about our current situation, what I really hope we can do as a city is to get to the place where we can say, what is that city we want? And at the very beginning, when we sort of talked about the things here are the things we love about the city. Here are the things that why we all chose to live here. What is that? And what are we willing to pay for that? As opposed to being in this situation where we're in crisis, where we have to cut it, and we're just making it about how do we survive, as opposed to let's get to that place that says this is the city we want to live in. This is what those things cost, and this is what we're willing to pay for. And that's part of what the budgeting by priorities process is the hope of. And that was one of the suggestions from the Blue Ribbon panel, was working with the community to identify those priorities and say, these are the things. And certainly there are those things we have to do by law, and we probably should do those. But there are also those other things. Let's focus on the priorities. And I can't wait for the city to get to that place where we're focused on that, as opposed to the way we're dealing with our financial situation now, because that's the way it really needs to work. Part of what got us here is that over 4 years, so this is part of the data here from the Blue Ribbon panel, that as they got in and started saying, okay, let's look at some trends. And yay, revenues over that 4 years went up over, nearly 28%, but expenditures went up almost 45%. Some of that was self-imposed, some of it wasn't self-imposed. Here's just a couple examples of recent cost increases in a year, right? Our insurance $558,000, 40%. Utilities, fuel, and just as a reminder, property tax, we rely heavily on property tax, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. By state, right, we currently can only go up 1% a year. That 1% is about $107,000. That didn't come close to covering just the increase in insurance. So no decision anybody else made, right? The cost went up for one item by that. 1% increase in property tax brings us 107,000. That is a part of our reality and every other city's reality in the state. It costs under that kind of a scenario, unless you can come up with other kinds of revenue streams or other kinds of business models, is a formula for a slow death, because costs will always increase faster than that. Here's another example. Uh, Brian, who's here with us today, shared this with me. He is the person who got this bill and went, huh? So this technology helps our servers be more efficient and act like they are more than one server. And Brian had gotten us a great deal, $2,000 for 3 years. They were bought out by a conglomerate that controls 80% of the country. And they said, yeah, that's going to be 31,000 for 1 year. Brian is shopping. Part of what else contributed to this was, just sort of the decision-making processes. And again, this is not to point fingers, but if you see that blue line across the top, that's like a perfectly balanced budget. Here's how much money I have coming in. Here's how much money I'm going to spend. Perfect blue straight line. But in the past several years, those orange lines are, you can see every year a budget was passed that exceeded that revenue. So the orange line says, here's how much more we approved a budget than the revenues allowed. The blue line says during the year, other things happened and they amended the budget and made the decision even deeper. So the hole got deeper. And that is part of the trend that contributed. Forecasted revenues, right? You budget against what you think you're going to earn. So you have to be kind of careful about that. And there's a lot of things that you can't control. And we're facing that already this year, only 3 months into it, in terms of the revenues not meeting the expectations we have for things that we can't control. But it's a huge impact. If you did a budget that said, I have this much money, and then you missed that revenue by $3.4 million, it's going to have an impact, especially when it's compiled against the slide I just showed you previously. Here are some things that as we got into 2024, so the reserves had been depleted already by $8 million. We relied on that ARPA money to help write the check for that contract, but it's gone. That was one time. Okay, we're in trouble. What do? Let's write the check. We've got this ARPA money. Yay, we made it another year. We did that. Open positions. Historically, council said, as I came in, historically, we've had open positions. That has provided us some savings. Let's put a number on it, and please find that $3.2 million. Again, there was an approved budget deficit of 836. We have a situation where currently, you try to get your budget done before the end of the year, right? And so you do that, but we also negotiate our contracts with our unions, and that takes effect at the end of the year. And your budget's already approved, but now you've signed a contract, so you're January 1st, you're already in trouble because of that, the timing of it. So we are working with our unions to just try to back time it so we can end the contracts and negotiate them for the middle of the year, so we know what that real number is, so we can do much more accurate budgeting. But coming into 2024, that had $1 million impact. The beginning fund balance was overestimated by $500,000. In the past, for some reason, the city, people leave, and we have agreements with them that here is your sick leave or vacation pay that we owe you, and that wasn't budgeted. That had an impact of $267,000, and then revenue was estimated. So these are just some of the other things that impacted how we got here. Now let's talk about things we aren't doing. So in this, so here we are dealing with those things and trying to do what we can with the money we have. But for a long time, part of how you continue to sort of go down the road without asking residents to help is you don't do stuff. And so I want to share a little bit about that. I'm sort of a believer, if you spend money on something valuable, you might want to take care of it. I'm a sort of a buzzkill, aren't I? This is a list of our buildings. And you'll notice on the right, there's a little chart that has 4 different colors. The green means that building's sweet. Yellow means, yeah, you might, you got some stuff to do. The gold, you got some serious stuff to do. And red is, yeah, maybe you don't want to go in there. But you will notice none of those buildings have the top 2 colors. None of those buildings have the top 2 colors. Deferred maintenance. So here's some numbers to put to it. We had a study done back in 2018. A professional study said that you need to increase in 2018 dollars your commitment to keeping your roads maintained by $1.2 million. You need to increase it by $1.2 million in 2018 dollars. I talked about getting in ADA ramps, and it's important we do that, and we need to do that. We have 1,500 more to do. If we did them all in a year, there you go, done. Facilities. So that chart I just showed you, that's the backlog. If everything that was done through that McKinsey report, that's the price tag. And then sidewalks. One of the things I hear a lot is, could you make them love the paint, but could you make them smooth? And the other one is, could I just get one? And if we were to start a program and say, let's just whittle away at this. Let's just start. Let's just do a little bit at a time. There's 91 miles without sidewalks in Edmonds. And at today's dollars, I asked these guys, I said, just do a back of the envelope. Back of the envelope. If we were going to just get it done, what would that take? But this is the stuff that we haven't been doing. And this because it's easy to just keep going. And then, potholes don't get cheaper or smaller if you don't fix them. I think also some perspective on, tax fatigue. Here's our reality. For every dollar you pay in property tax, the city gets about 14 cents of that. Because, we raised our hand and said, we want better mass transit. We want better schools. So about 14 cents of every dollar is what comes to us. The sales tax, when you pay, the 10.5%. So for every dollar you spend and pay another 10.5 cents on something you buy, and thank you for shopping Edmonds, we get less than a penny. So there's only 5 ways, right? Here's our options. It's like this at home. We can cut, save, sell, borrow, increase. These are our options. It's not rocket science. So other things that happened to us as we came into 2025, Neil referenced this earlier, that we came in and as we did the very first draft of the budget, we created a target to balance the budget. Here's what our revenue projection is. Here's what our first draft of the budget is. So staff, you got to cut 7 million. And then we got to council with the draft budget, and council said, thanks. We'd like $1.5 million more. We'd like to see that start in April, and that by the end of the year, you can get to another $1.5 million. We would also like to see 230,000 specifically come from the police department command staff. And then the other way we balanced the budget this year was through a $6 million internal loan. So here's some more of our reality. That internal loan, we got to pay it back, $6 million. The reserves that have been previously used, $8 million. We want those reserves. We need to pay that back. The cost of fire will go up. And so if the levy fails, the estimate is that we might have to write a check for, instead of 12.1 million, 21 million. So there's another 8.9 million that we will have to come up with. So just those things, right? Almost 23 million. Then again, the levy currently assumes that we would retain that money to help offset all those things that I just mentioned, that's 6.5 million. So if the levy fails, add the 6.5 million to that because we won't have access to it. So right? And you're following me. And then again, if at this point we don't have a final number, but in the budget, we are currently reflecting a November levy as well, because even that, you can tell why it wouldn't work. We would need to come back and ask for more. And that currently plug number is 6 million or something. So our reality continues to be expenses exceed revenues. We have significantly cut staff and programs, which means less of everything. And we have a significant maintenance backlog in a number of issues. So some of the things we're looking at, because there's two sides to this coin. It's not just cutting, it's how, and it's not just property tax. So, we have started doing some of these things. We're looking at other things, and in the category of things we can increase, fees, penalties, rent. We have facilities, taxes, and other kinds of taxes. We can sell our vehicles. We are selling some vehicles right now. We have some buildings we could consider selling and some parks. We can introduce things that we haven't, some fees for things that other cities maybe are charging for that we aren't, some taxes that we haven't used, or business types, introducing different types of businesses into the community. And then we are also aggressively trying to, how do we share our resources? I gave the example of how we're working with law enforcement to do that, but there are other kinds of things that we are working with other cities to do. We are painting stripes on the street in Mukilteo as a way, because not every city necessarily needs its own striper. So we're looking for lots of opportunities to do that. And then we keep shopping. We're currently shopping for cheaper jail services. And then another option in terms of other is joining the RFA. So I introduced you to this guy last time. Nobody wants to be here. This is not what any of you signed up for. What I really want to hear the mayor say. So I get it. This doesn't make anybody happy. This is our reality, and we have, as a city, as a community, as a country, we have faced worse things. But I do want to acknowledge that where you all are sitting emotionally right now. One of the things people talk about is staff. You might have read people saying, yeah, the city got fat. There were all these people that got employed. You're just too many people doing too few things. So I just want to point out that this was something the Blue Ribbon Panel also sort of reported in numbers, that between 21 and 24, when they looked at it, that employment did grow by an additional 38 employees. I want to share with you, as of Tuesday, when I gave the report to the council, that number has now been reduced 48. For a reference point, here are other cities in terms of, now, again, it's a reference point. It is, and I acknowledge that like with most things, the data I gave you with South County Fire, what is the job and how many people does it take to do the job? But a reference point is, okay, how many staff do other cities have? So you can see by population here what other cities have and their sort of full-time per capita equivalent is. So we are second to the bottom in terms of number of employees per population. Another reference point, let's go back to 2005. If people think we've grown too fast, too fat. So you can see we're at 252. Back in 2005, we were at 273. So next time you hear that from somebody. Another reference point in terms of revenue and the impact that when you rely as heavily on property tax as we do. So here's our good friends from Linwood. Next time you see Mayor Frizzell, would you tell her, no, I really do want her to give us Perrinville? So, because, people think it's ours anyway. So population, you can see we're very close in population, but look at the difference in the general fund revenues. They have an $80 million general fund total. We have a $50 million general fund. This is round numbers, not this year. This is looking at it through the lens of last year. And so if you look at the property tax, we're about 16 million from property tax and they're 4.5 million, right? That is our reliance. So we rely on it 31%, they rely on it 7% because they have all these other revenue streams that are coming in. So, I will give you another reference point. That 16 million that comes in from property tax, our police department budget for this year, clearly, if you watched the meeting on Tuesday, you know that this isn't, we're cutting everywhere, but the budget for police this year was 19 million. So just the revenue from property tax doesn't cover our police costs. And I shared with you what our fire costs are and will be. That's how heavily we rely on property tax currently. Some cool news, some good news. We have 4,100, almost 4,200 business licenses as of the end of last year. Another thing that makes us special, we have locally owned businesses that are in locally owned buildings that have local people working in them, and being supported by local community. That makes us special, and people come here a lot for just those kinds of things. Now, I'm going to claim a record here, and I dare anybody in the country to go against it. I am going to claim that we have per capita the most pizza places per capita anywhere in the country for cities under 50,000. We own it. All right, let's talk about improving government. Um, and there are, the three branches of government. The judge did send his apologies. He had full intention of being here today, but a jury trial came up, and apparently Justice Trump's State of the Union. I don't know. But he did intend to be here. The working relationship, and in some cases the firewalls, are important. It was set up for this reason, for good reasons. But I will tell you that these relationships are working really well. Uh, we rely on the community in terms of improving government. It's engaging the community. We have incredibly smart people walking around here. It just boggles my mind, the people who live here in Edmonds and what they have done in the sandboxes they've played in. And we tap it through these boards and commissions. And Neil mentioned earlier the Blue Ribbon panel, which I brought in at the very beginning. You can see that list under the blue line. Those are things that I have personally set up since taking office to help me inform me in decision making. So I brought people together to help in those that didn't exist. We're also looking at this on how we can do it more efficiently. So one of the things on that list is a board and commission task force to say, is 14 the right number? Does it need, no other city has 14, by the way, or whatever that number adds up to now. So, what is the best use? What are the problems we're trying to solve? What are the best ways to engage the community? As any of you know who's volunteered, it's really hard to kill a committee. So what is the use? Should it be a committee, a task force? What are the problems we have? How should the community be? So that task force is helping us do that. I want to do a shout out to one of these because they don't typically get a lot of attention, is our Sister Cities Commission. They've been around for a while, since 1988, and as you can see, 1,200 people. Anybody who's been to another country, right? The value of that. It also reminds us that we are not an island. We aren't an island in this region, in this state, in this country, and certainly globally. And to have this kind of relationship where people can go to our sister city in Japan and live with the community members there, and the same when they come here and live with our community members. It's truly an amazing experience, and I'm very these. And if Carolyn's in here, a shout out to her. She's been helping run that since the beginning, or around the beginning. Then also, again, our volunteers, I mentioned them earlier, but in terms of engaging the community and in government, government relies heavily on volunteerism. We now more than ever, we can't write that check. And so it is great to have volunteers helping in so many different ways to get this place running. Also, it's the organizations in the community. This is a community that shows up and helps. And these are the kinds of community organizations here who are helping advance all sorts of needs here. And we couldn't be the community that we love so much without organizations like this. And that is a part of it, that it is not just government that makes this machine run. We very much are a community of service. And this is me sort of officially putting a stake in the ground. There's a national program that is trying to be launched next year. The country will be 250 years old, and there's going to be a national program to have communities of service. And I want Edmonds to be the first one on the list. And I think I've just demonstrated some of how that ought to be the case. Also, we are regional partners. These are the kinds of things we participate in on a regional level in terms of other organizations, making sure that we are tapping resources everywhere. The list down on the bottom is, I just don't have logos for them, and they're more informal, but the mayors of South County get together. There's a CEO roundtable. So all of these organizations provide us the same opportunities to get better at it. Public records requests, another way government helps the community. This is an important thing. This is an important part of government. Is you don't delegate authority to us to decide what's good for you to know or not good for you to know. You get to know whatever you want if it exists. If a report exists, it's yours. And not just because it's the law, because it should be that way. But I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what that means. There are different rules, though. The city has different rules than the police has, than the courts have. So we have public records request people in each of those three. And these are the numbers of requests we got last year. Let me just share two of them so you can see. Usually it's people will say, tell me about my house, or I'm thinking about buying that property. Can you give me some background on what's my neighbor doing? Can you send me stuff? So it's that kind of thing. But there's also this kind of thing. So we try to narrow it down, right? We'll call people and say, is there something you're looking for? It's like, nope, just send them all. Here's another one. You think that was a beaut, right? 16 chemicals, 5 years, receipts, manifests, invoices, and we have to fulfill it. We had two records people at the city. We have one now because of the budget cuts. Other ways that we try to help make sure that you are engaged and know what's going on in the community is through our media. We rely heavily on the media, not just to send news, but to make sure we're doing things the way we should be doing them, and to help you see all sides of a story. The free press is more critical than it's ever been, and they are in jeopardy. We send out 100 and I was not sucking up. They're like, yeah, sure. We sent out 124 releases last year. If you were to look at any other city, they'd go, wow, that's a lot. In addition to that, we don't assume you're in one place or reading a single media. And so we also have to be in social media, and we did 125 of those posts. Some of you might have used the Fix-It app. People love the Fix-It app, and we do as well, because it tells us what's going on, exactly where it is. We're upgrading it so you can tell us where somebody left a shopping cart, so that we can deal with that problem. In addition to that, there are other tools we use. Sometimes it's a brochure, so you can walk around and do a self-guided walking tour. There are the plaques around the city. Lots of ways that we try to engage. I don't know if any of you have ever used our GIS map. It's kind of cool. See that list on the left there? You can go in and click one of those buttons, and it will show you where every pipe is, or where the utility cables are, and you can go and then zoom in right to it. So if you want to hang out one day and just sort of see what the infrastructure looks like, it's a very cool product. But it's another way for you to know what the city's doing on your behalf. And then I show up, having access to the mayor, and say whatever you want or ask whatever you want. I was doing this at the market last year, and I plan to do it again this year. I try to publish those kinds of things. We just introduced a new e-newsletter. And then, of course, not just me, but you can reach out to council and staff and our boards and commissions, right? We have phones. There's the forums and town halls that we have. There's the city council meetings where people can always participate and or have hearings. We are in the community where people have access to us, obviously emails and letters. Let's talk about emails a second. So personally, last year, here is my inbox. Now you're all trying to figure out who that is, aren't you? Some of you know. So let me give you examples of emails. And it's not expected, but every so often there are people who send these. Certainly not expected, but really appreciated. Right? How nice is that? And then I get these. Talk a little bit about the courts. I won't touch on this a lot. There is a state of the courts coming up, but I do want to share a little bit because it's important and I think it's kind of cool. This is, this is about making sure that the justice system works, and uh, there is great pride and envy about our particular court. This is the kind of stuff they do over there. Um, we have a community court, and this is, can we, is jail really the best solution for everybody? Is there a way we can get to the root cause of this and help them with it and try to prevent them coming back and doing a round trip? And so this is an intention to help the individual and to go to the root cause so that we don't have to see them again or send them to jail. And part of it is there's this through this kind of a program, there's a graduation. And I just wanted to share some of the quotes that these guys sent. That's Jarrell over there in the picture holding up his certificate. It's really cool. So if you want to hear more, the judge will be giving his annual report to council on the 25th. Um, so all of this, it, it really takes, um, there's four legs to this stool, and it doesn't work if there's dysfunction in any one of these directions. It is all about, as you've seen, the amount of work that goes on at the city through the city staff. Got a glimpse into my life, the council, and residents. And council, it's not unusual for them to have packets somewhere between 400 and 700 pages, and they have committee meetings, and they work hard, and they take it very seriously. And then you all are always there, and you're here today, and you roll up your sleeves and help. I do want to do a special shout out to staff. Many of the careers that they have chosen, people are not choosing as much anymore, and the competition for staff is being harder. They had different career choices. They also could have chosen private sector over public sector, and that they chose public sector and then chose Edmonds. They have choices, and that they have stuck with us through what we're going through, knowing that there are layoffs, knowing that there's uncertainty in the future, and having to face that every day. And these are the people, when we tell you, yeah, don't go outside, they're the ones outside, right? Trying to make sure that you can get around. And when stuff comes out of the sewers, it shouldn't be coming out of the sewers, they're in it, right? Trying to make that work and answering your questions. And not everybody's, you saw the kinds of emails I get. Well, they get those over the phone and in person as well. And I am grateful for every day, and they inspire me. You hang out with these people and hear what they are doing and how they feel about what they're doing. We are so lucky to have them. But it's not just the staff. Council and their family, staff and their family, um, my bride who sees very little of me. All of them are sacrificing as well, and I do think it's important to shout out the sacrifice that family and friends make to staff, council, and the mayor. So what's next? Well, more of the same, right? How do we do these things? How do we continue to protect you, protect this place, protect your money, and improve government? Uh, we all have, you have, some very tough decisions coming ahead of you. This is nothing that we do in isolation. These are decisions you make. You empower government. We work for you. Our job is to serve you. You are creating the priorities. This is that list of priorities from the survey. And again, if these are the things you want us to do and you want to keep it at the level that we love about this place, that's going to take a commitment to do, because it's right now this is so the wrong way for a city to be in a position, is just to continue to cut as opposed to saying, what is the city I want? what does that look like? So we all understand it in the same way, and what's it going to take to have that? So we need to be working on these priorities and getting to a place where we can keep this place the place we love. Before I started, some of you might have been to a couple of events where I unrolled my list of things that I wanted to get done. Well, I continue to keep that list. A few things have gotten in my way, but this is things come up and I write it down, and it's like, these are things we need to be working on that will help this city run more smoothly in the future, that are important to making your lives better. And I hope to get to it. And I do realize, there are a few things you all have some like, but Rosen, could you really focus on, there's a couple that sort of rise above. And I get it, and we're working on it. But we have some real situations. So I realize this is a one-way communication today, and I appreciate how patient you've been with me. Edmond Civic Roundtable, as they did last year, has invited me to their event on April 7th. That will be a two-way road. I will be there. You can say whatever you want to me if you want to put something in my head, or just tell me anything you want to say to me, or answer questions. And so again, that event will be at the Waterfront Center, and you'll be able to be reminded of that later. Just last week, pride of place, just last week, we were named one of the top 10 most neighborly towns in Washington. Remember when we used to win the friendliest city in the state, like 9 times in a row, and they were like sick of it, so they stopped asking the question. So this place does matter, right? We love this place. You are here. There's so many things you could be doing today, and you came and are spending the morning with me because we love this place and you want to know what's going on in your city. And coming together really is important, but it's working together that's going to matter. We just have to continue to roll up our sleeves and work together. And I'm grateful to all of you for what you are. Everybody in this room, I know, has been committed to this city, and you've given your time and your passion and your soul and your money to this community. So that's all I got. Thanks for coming.